Well, Razorback fans, it is officially game week for the Arkansas Razorbacks. 5 days away. Let's get hyped for game week on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is just around the corner, so visit FanDuel in the app today and start planning your futures bets now. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, as it is the final weekend that you'll have to worry about not having Razorback football, or at least even some college football action that was happening over the weekend, which is just great to see. But we are right here in the thick of it all. And so I want to talk about some of the things that's going to prove to possibly be a crazy, if not the craziest, college football season of all time, and how Arkansas factors into that, as well as a little celebration, a little birthday here in the end of the podcast. But I wanted to start with just the game week itself. Okay. It's 5 days, Darren McFadden days away from Razorback football. And from those of you who I've talked to on social media, or at least in person, many of you and me and others, we're getting closer to having our final predictions of what we think the Razorbacks are going to do, what we think college football is going to be in general. Again, all the decisions that get made, which is amazing because you think back to SEC media days being over a month ago at this point in time, and yet it feels like it was eons ago. It feels like so much has changed other than just having fall camp for some of these teams. It feels so different right now. But either way, it's the game week, and this is the time where we start really getting excited. And this is the time where I can speak to you, at least on this, where I start getting excited and get amped up and start feeling optimistic. Now, I'll probably get into my official predictions. I know I did some with some others and with Inside Arkansas, but there will be some things I want to expound upon and get into that on Locked On. But this is something that I want to make sure I'm clear on when it comes to me saying that this is when I get more optimistic. This is when I start, maybe feeling myself and feeling the team a little bit, because a lot of you are probably going to say, well, wait a minute, John, you said you weren't going to waver. You said you had Arkansas going this. You said Arkansas wasn't going to be good at this, whatever it may be. And that's fine. But I'm going to look at it from this perspective when I say optimism. I start looking at the possibilities, and I start dreaming, start fantasizing, if you will, about how cool it would be if this happened. Or if this did happen, how would I see it envision and in my mind, and how would I see it playing out? For instance, how would I see Arkansas beating Notre Dame at home? How would I see Arkansas getting into the top 25 at some point this season? How would I see Arkansas being that team that nobody sees coming and ends up being a team that is fighting, or at least in the conversation of, a potential college football playoff spot? All those things seem to be pretty far from any of our predictions and maybe even your feelings. But that's what game week especially is all about, is because we start playing the possibilities. Listen, it's a long shot that I'm ever going to get a date with Sydney Sweeney, but it doesn't mean that if I ever had the opportunity to get a date with Sydney Sweeney, how I'd like to see it go. It's the same thing when it comes to our Razorback football team. Probably no chance that Arkansas wins a national championship this year. Probably no chance that they actually end up competing for a college football playoff. But doesn't mean it's not fun if you ever be in those circumstances to kind of think about it. And then when you start to think about it, that's when the excitement starts to creep in. The excitement starts to creep in because then suddenly when you start playing it out in your mind of the possibilities, you start connecting the dots as to how this would actually end up being a reality. You start looking at it from the lens of, well, I was able to put this together, so how far-fetched is it? And you start doing these individual things. I mean, how far-fetched is it that maybe Notre Dame is not as good as what they were a year ago and their quarterback's not any good? I mean, how unlikely is it that Ole Miss takes some steps back after last season and maybe aren't as good offensively, especially in the beginning part of the year. I mean, how unlikely is that? How unlikely is it that that 3-game stretch that you have in Fayetteville against SEC opponents, against arguably your, quote, easiest SEC opponents, that you don't go 3-0 and you actually start to make some sort of home field advantage? I mean, how unlikely is that? How unlikely is it that at the end of the season you finally end strong, and you beat your rivals that are there at the end of the season, like LSU and Texas and Missouri? How unlikely is it? You start to say in these individual contexts about how unlikely it is that something like this could happen. And then you start saying, well, if it's not the craziest thing in the world about this or this or this or this, well, who's to say that all those things don't come together at one time and it ends up being crazy for everybody in every game? And all those things come together. Ole Miss isn't as good. And you go down to Oxford and you beat them in the early part of the year. Notre Dame's not any good. They're not ready for the SEC type of physicality that you're going to provide. And because they're flying high. They think that they're Notre Dame. They can come in here and beat you up. And you end up beating them. And then that 3-game stretch, those teams that everyone thinks is not going to be as good or not that good this year, they aren't that good. And then you just take care of business at home and you get that confidence and that swagger. And, at the end of the season, you just start putting it all together and the likelihood of it all coming together at once and the ball bouncing your way in every game. Because let's be honest, it happens for some teams, right? We've seen it happen for some teams. We've seen it happen, say, for a South Carolina last year, where a lot of people didn't expect them to be good at all. Most people had them to be picked next to last in the SEC, and then they end up going 9-3. Having some big-time wins, and we're really close in some games to possibly taking that next step and being in the college football playoff. That happened a year ago. We saw other teams do the same thing too. A team that you beat last season in Tennessee, they played in the playoffs, and you showed that you could beat them. So who's to say that it's not you? Who's to say that it's not Arkansas? Why not us? Why not here? Why can't it all happen? Why can't the ball bounce our way? We've fought, we have bled, we've cried, we've rejoiced, we've gone through all the same things that these other programs have done. We've added some pieces here. We got some coaches that are pretty good. They're still here. I think Taylon Green has got all the things and all the makings to be a great quarterback. And as long as you got a great quarterback, I think you can accomplish anything. You can take on the world. You can go up against anybody. And the defense may be a little suspect, but then again, who has a good defense in the SEC these days? That defense is almost optional by most people's accounts. And as long as you got an offense that's as potent as anybody to go in and start beating some of these teams, and especially going into their arenas and in their stadiums, and maybe their atmospheres aren't as good because those teams aren't as good, then maybe you can kind of take care of business in the early going. See what I'm saying? You start to talk yourself into things. And that's okay. Now, it doesn't mean that your prediction or my prediction, even if we think it's low, is not legitimate. Because as I've said this, I say this every year on this podcast or on my radio show, but I say it every year. If I have Arkansas going 6-6 this season, 5-7, 6-6, whatever, that does not take away from the fact that I'm going to be rooting like crazy that they're going to go 12-0. Every single game, I hope they win. And I would love nothing more for me to be dead wrong about those losses. And they just go out and they prove me wrong. They make an idiot out of me. They make a moron out of me. And they make all of you start second guessing, why am I listening to John on his podcast? He doesn't know anything. He said this team was going to be average and ended up being great. I want that for you. I want that for me. I want to be wrong about the struggles and about the lack of success that this team may potentially have. I want to be. But because of that fact, that's when I start playing into my world, into our world as Razorback fans, as just how awesome it would be, Just how awesome it would be for just one time, one season, things to just go your way. The ball to bounce your way a couple of times. For you to have multiple wins that nobody sees coming. for you to go out and just put your foot down and go through the season where you are playing as good as anybody. It just makes you want that so bad because how much fun it would be. How much fun it would be. How much fun it would be every Saturday to wake up and to have an excitement, not a dread, but an excitement to watch your Razorback football team play every Saturday. To have the excitement for those of you who travel into Fayetteville for these games and you spend the money on tickets, you spend the money on parking, you spend the money on lodging, you spend the money on everything involved. And for you to not be sitting there looking at it and be like, why am I doing this? For you to wake up on those Saturdays and you can't wait to spend your money on it because you know at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it. Why not you? Why not Arkansas? How cliche is that to say, right? It is. But it doesn't mean it's not fun to think about. Doesn't mean it's not fun to dream that you're the talk of the town. You're the talk of the SEC. College game day comes to town one time. You're fighting for something. You're entering into the month of November being in the conversation of something. Instead of just an afterthought where we have to show this team's highlights because they're part of our league. It'd just be nice. And that's what game week is about. It's your last stand. It's your last time. It's your last week. To not just be downtrodden and upset and depressed because of what your team is doing on the field. No games have been played. No losses have been had, but also no wins. So get excited, Razorback fans. I'm excited. Believe it or not, I'm pumped for Razorback football, and I can't wait for Saturday to get here. It cannot get here quick enough. But I am going to talk a little bit about college football in general and why this may be the craziest season that we've ever seen and how Arkansas factors into it. Bring that up here in a second. So stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I'm here to tell you about our friends over at Rugiit. Because, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiit Ready. Rugiit Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiit's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when that moment hits just right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiit might be your answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. And the fact that it's done completely online, Rugiit connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their website, and it's helping a lot of people feel more comfortable and confident and present in the moment. So head to Rugiit.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiit website for full safety information. All right, so moving into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So we had a little bit of college football over the weekend. I mean, it wasn't anything very significant. I think we had a top 25 matchup in Ireland between Kansas State and Iowa State, which, by the way, folks, if Arkansas ever had a chance to play in Ireland, I would be all about it. I would be so about it. I think everybody would. I don't know if any of you would be interested in going to Ireland, but I would. I'd love to go to Ireland. And I don't know, like any real place, like the outside the country that Arkansas ended up playing or could play in, I think it would be pretty fun. As long as it's done in the right circumstances and can make sense. But I was also thinking of how I wouldn't mind Arkansas playing a week 0 game. Like, imagine if Arkansas played Alabama A&M this past Saturday. Would any of you been upset? Like, would any of you been mad that you had to do week 0? I don't think so. I mean, shoot, what was it last year? I like the Thursday night game to open the season against UAPV. I actually like that because then you had all Saturday, all week 1 of Saturday to watch games and watch other games and have fun with it too. So, I'm all about that. But it's amazing how, with everyone's predictions and things that are going on, people start to kind of look at the college football landscape and seeing how crazy that it could actually end up being. And, we always refer back to the 2007 season. I know y'all remember that. Just how chaotic it was. And as a little crash course, I mean, there were so many things that happened, but the crash course deal was that you had in the final week of the season, and now actually it was conference championship weekend. You had the number 1 Missouri Tigers and the number 2 West Virginia Mountaineers, where if those two teams would have won those respective games at the end of the season, that would have been your national championship in the BCS bowl game. Everyone would have been just depressed if you had to watch Missouri and West Virginia in a national championship game. Well, it didn't happen. Both those teams lost. Missouri lost in the Big 12 title game, and West Virginia lost to Pittsburgh. And was like 13-9, a really weird game. So then you ended up with Ohio State and LSU. And LSU, what was crazy about them is that they had 2 losses. Ooh, I know, crazy, right? But they had 2 losses, both of them being triple overtime. One of them to the Kentucky Wildcats and Andre Woodson. And the other one being to a team called, the Arkansas Razorbacks, Darren McFadden, all of them down in Baton Rouge. But that ended up being the championship game, and LSU ended up being the first 2-loss national champion team in the BCS era. So the point is that it was very chaotic. It was very crazy. There was a lot of things that happened there at the end, but throughout the season, too, it was pretty wild. I mean, if you think back also, like the Heisman Trophy, which, Tim Tebow ended up winning. He was the first sophomore to win it that season, first sophomore ever. Darren McFadden was the runner-up, although Darren McFadden, I didn't say he should have won it when Tebow won it. He should have won it when Troy Smith won it, but that's neither here nor there. But then you also had Colt Brennan, rest in peace, from Hawaii being a Heisman finalist. Yeah, Hawaii having a guy, and then Chase Daniel from Missouri. It was just all strange, all very strange. And I bring all of that up to kind of put it on the forefront here, where this season, and I'm not saying it just because you could say it at any time, but this season potentially has really good possibilities to be insane. To be absolutely insane. And when I mean insane, I'm talking about you, me, no one knowing what the week's going to be about. No one knowing who's going to win what. I mean, for crying out loud, most people feel like Texas, for instance, is like the best team in the country, preseason number 1 to win the SEC and all that. They're starting a quarterback who really hasn't played much at all. I mean, it's Arch Manning. Great name. Could end up being a great quarterback. I'm not saying he won't be, but there's still a lot of mystery there. There's still a lot of, not too sure if he's going to be that guy, especially taking with the number 1 team in the country, Texas. So you have a brand new quarterback with the number 1 team. Who knows what it's going to look like? The SEC in general has a lot of new quarterbacks that are in. You have a lot of teams that from last season that are really good that some are thinking that could end up taking a step back, like Tennessee, like Ole Miss. Is South Carolina still going to be a team that was really good? Georgia's still going to have some of the best and most talented players, but are they going to be to that level of a national championship? And then you got, the other teams around the college football landscape, with Oregon. Are they still going to be a team that was, they went undefeated last year, but are they going to be that team? Ohio State, defending champs, what are they going to look like? There's just so much going on. And with the transfer portal, I mean, all these new players on these new teams, it could end up being great for them, could end up being bad for them. There's just so much mystery surrounding it, but that's what makes it so exciting. And honestly, kind of going off of what we talked about in the first segment, if you're a Razorback fan, it's a pretty exciting thing to think about in that perspective because there is a lot of potential to where you could be in the mix for that. Now, I'm not saying you could be in the mix for winning a national championship. I'm not saying that, though it's fun to think about. I'm saying that you could be in the mix of causing the chaos. You may not be have a great season, but you could ruin somebody else's season. Like, imagine how Ole Miss is going to feel if you went down there in week 3 and beat them. You Arkansas, beat them at night in their home stadium when they felt like last year was a little bit disappointing, and same with the year before. But they're trying to fight for that playoff spot to finally get over the hump. And man, that would put I'd be pissing in their Wheaties right there if you ended up beating them down in Oxford. Like, imagine what that would be like. Or to another extent, like same thing with Notre Dame. Notre Dame may be a team that's like, all right, hey, listen, we look good against A&M. They beat you, and or they beat A&M, and now they're going to come in and try to beat you, and then you beat them. And it's like, wow, okay, well, I guess Notre Dame's not that good right now. I know it's kind of sad to say because I feel like I'm saying, hey, if Arkansas wins these games, that's how they're going to be involved because they stink. And then, so they're going to be surprising if they win any games. I'm not trying to say it like that, but the point is that you could be kind of an element and an agent of that chaos. You could be why the college football landscape is so chaotic. And honestly, if the balls all bounce your way, like we talked about in the first segment, who knows? Maybe you're involved in something. Maybe you're messing around with something. Maybe you're feeling something. But point is, I can't wait for it. I can't wait to watch it each and every Saturday. It's just going to be awesome. I just cannot wait. Celebrating a birthday. Not my birthday, but a particular birthday. That means a lot to me and hopefully to you. I'll tell you what I mean on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, which is tomorrow. A brand new holiday for football fans who want to live for their bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, and they're also going to be helping you out whether you want to call your MVP or eye a long shot division winner, or if you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one even kicks off, well, this is your moment right here. Take a flyer on the MVP race. Who do you think it's going to be? Think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes? You think it's going to be Josh Allen? I mean, who could be the guy that steps up? Well, you can do that. Crown your champion. Who you think's going to win it all? You can do that. Or maybe even parlay your division winner dark horses. You can do that as well. So visit FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, and that's tomorrow. So it's FanDuel. Play your game. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I know it's game week, and I know we got a lot to talk about and this week, and we will, and we'll break it all down and everything. But, you know, this was a very crazy weekend for me, just for one reason in particular, is because it was announced. I didn't even realize it, but it was announced by Locked On in the podcast network that this was my seventh year doing the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. And that is crazy to me. 7 years. I wasn't even, I knew that, of course, it had been a long time. I mean, we have over 1,500 episodes of this podcast that I've put in. But it was just kind of a punch in the face of like, hey, man, you've been doing this for 7 years. And it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I've done it as long as I was in college, pretty much, is the joke I made. But that it's just really cool. You know, it's really cool because it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do this podcast every day. And I'm proud of it. And I'm not taking away anything from what the network is all about at all. Because, you know, David Locke, for those of you who may not know the story, I had no idea who this guy was. He called me back 7 years ago, roughly, and was starting this thing called the Locked On Podcast Network, and was interested if I wanted to know if I wanted to do the Arkansas version of it, because they were starting a college team podcast for individual teams. And because I had previously done the SEC Country Arkansas podcast, he reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in it. He's like, David Locke is the voice of the Utah Jazz. Like, I had no idea who this guy was. But I accepted it because I did like podcasting, and it was just a nice little side gig. And but I'll be honest, like I remember at the time, you know, I wasn't really sure, and I did like my first month of episodes, and you know, put in the work, and it was before even video was part of it. It was just audio, and I remember I like got a check for it, and it was like nothing. It was like not even worth doing, and I got pretty discouraged in the beginning. I was like, wow, all that work and time, and that's it, you know. But the best thing I ever did was stick with it, and it's become a juggernaut, and I am so thankful for that. And again, I'm not just saying it's about me, because it's not. All of you, it's about you, because I could do the exact same podcast every day, but if you don't listen, if you don't care, then it's worth nothing. So it's always about you. But I'm thankful that David and Locked On trusted me with this. And, you know, I'm not, again, saying anything different from anybody else who does Locked On, but there's so many other team podcast people that we have in this network that have had people come and go. You know, like you've had somebody do it the Locked On, LSU. My friend Matt Moscona did it in the beginning, and then Caroline Fenton, who did an awesome job, took over after him, and then she left, and then Matt Moscona comes back. So it's like that interchanged. So we've seen some teams have some different hosts for different reasons and everything. But what makes me most proud is I'm the only host of Locked On Razorbacks from the beginning, from the jump. It's I've done that, and I've loved it so much, and I'm so glad and so thankful that I stuck with it. I'm so glad and I'm thankful for the opportunity that Locked On gave me, and I'm so glad and so thankful for each of you that listen each and every day. I try to tell people who start podcasts, because let's be honest, a lot of you, well, I shouldn't say you, a lot of people just think that podcasting is easy. They think that, well, you just sit there and look into a camera and talk about a sport for 20 to 30 minutes a day, and then that's it. It's an easy thing. Anybody can do that. Well, you're right. Technically speaking, anybody could do it. But the one thing of advice I always try to give people if they ever ask me about starting up a podcast or anything like that is I say, hey, if you're going to do it, just expect no one to listen to it and you not to make any money in it for at least a couple years. I mean, that's just an honest thing. It's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing. It's a tough business to be in because, again, there's so many that are out there that people try to navigate through and try to choose from and everything. And because of David's vision and Locked On and Tegna, who's the company that owns us at the Locked On Podcast Network, and everything involved with it, I'm just so thankful that it's a great vision, and it's been such a great help to me, and it's helped me learn so much, and it's been a passion for me, and I'm just so thankful for this and for the opportunity to do this every day for you. Again, I can't tell you how awesome it is. 7 years, man, 7 years. Like the longest time I ever did a single radio show was at the Buzz, and I did that for 4. So if that puts anything in perspective, this is the longest job I've ever had, and at one place. And I'm so happy, and I'm glad that all of you tune in, watch in, listen in, subscribe. I'm thankful for all of you, and I can't wait to see what the next 7 years holds here on Locked On Razorbacks. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.